I would like to call the meeting to order of the UDC. It's at 6:30 on June 10, 2015. First, we need to start with the roll call, please.
Here.
Jim Sawhill.
Here.
Joe Miller.
Here.
Joel Condon.
Here.
Monica Emerson.
Here.
Monica Sullivan.
Here.
Nicole Lane.
Here.
And Jerry Winchester is excused.
I would like to announce that we have a quorum this evening. Next in the agenda, we move Thursday minutes. Can we have a motion to approve the minutes? We have a motion by Monica Emerton and a second by Nicole Rem. Are there any objections? Good. Next, we move to disclosures. Did anyone here has any disclosures?
Yes, Madam Chair. I have a disclosure. I visited the site this afternoon to investigate the conditions there, and I did have a conversation with Security Captain Joel Russ, and as I was pulled over and taking notes, he approached my car, asked what I was doing. I explained that I was on the Urban Design Commission, and we just talked about, I asked him about his impression of the signage situation and what might be, helpful, and what are the issues that he perceives as a security person directing traffic.
That's very nice from you. Do we have first any more disclosures? Nicole?
I did. She might have. I pushed my button.
Oh, Monica Emerson.
The petitioner, Alaska Regional Hospital, is a customer of my company, so I have a disclosure on that. I do not feel it is significant monetarily. It's less than 20% of our business, so I don't know if you guys need more information than that, but that's my disclosure.
Okay. Do we have more disclosures? No. So can we get a motion to direct Commissioner? Oh, Joe Miller.
Sorry, I thought I had pressed my button. I was not present at the May 13th meeting, so in the cases of 2015-0026, 27, 28, and 51, I'll be abstaining.
Thank you. So can we get a motion to direct Commissioner Joe to participate? We have a motion by Monica Emerton, and now we have a second by Ed Leonetti. And now can we have a motion for, we vote, sorry, I haven't done this one. Okay. Okay, the wish of the commission is to continue to have Commissioner Monica Emerton to participate. Oh, first one was for Joe. Okay. So first one was for Joe. Okay, now, can we get a motion to direct Commissioner Monica Emerton to participate in the case? We have a motion by Ed Leonetti and a second by Jim Sawhill. Let's start voting. Okay, so we have the wish of the commission is to continue to have Monica Emerton to participate. So we have a complete quorum tonight. Now we can move next to for the approval of the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda? I have a motion by Nicole Rem and a second by Monica Emerton. The consent agenda has been approved. Now we move to our regular agenda. This is a public hearing. The procedure by which the public may speak to the Urban Design Commission at this meeting is, after the staff presentation is completed on public hearing items, the chair, myself, will ask for the public testimony on the issue. Persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the Urban Design Commission rules of procedure. Petitioners, 10 minutes. Representatives of groups, 5 minutes. Individuals, 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you might be asked questions by the Commission. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by a commissioner. An individual might have appeal rights relating to any action the Urban Design Commission takes, except Commission recommendations to the Assembly which are not appealable. Appeals must be filed with the Clerk's Office within 20 days after approval by the Urban Design Commission of the resolution, which is Commission's final decision. A fee for the appeal is required at the time of filing. Do we have a staff report?
Madam Chair, yes, I do. This case is for sign variances for Alaska Regional Hospital. The subject site is zoned RO and ROSL. The hospital is seeking a variance to allow freestanding and instructional signs that exceed the quantity, height, and area allowed by code. Sign type A signs are shown on locations 3 and 9 on page LP.I/M. And the first section I'll go over is regarding the variance for the two sign type A signs. And I do have to read the standard and then the response, and it's a bit laborious, so stay with me on this, as there are 5 standards. Special conditions exist which are peculiar to the land involved and which are not applicable to other land in the same district, deprive such property of the ability to display signs. This standard is not met. There are no special topographic circumstances that would result in a material impairment of sign visibility from the adjacent roadway, which significantly diminishes the owner's or user's ability to continue to communicate adequately and effectively with the public through the use of the sign. The petitioner's previous narrative stated that there is a 1-foot difference in topography between the two primary entrances. I have a correction for this. I misread 1 foot for 1 floor. The 1 floor difference does not diminish the visibility of the signs. Staff still feels that you can still see both signs, that topography is not an issue in this case. Sign type A is shown. I won't read that part. You got that there. Signs in RO zoning districts are limited to a maximum height of 15 feet and a maximum area of 80 square feet. The division recommends a sign reduction so that the signs do not overwhelm their locations, to reduce driver distraction of the electronic changeable copy on the sign, and to be more compatible with the RO zoning district. Standard 2. This standard is not met. Hospital customers seeking care will park their car and then walk to their destination. The compact nature of the medical campus lends itself to uncomplicated navigation between buildings. If further diagnostic services are needed in adjacent buildings, customers walk to these buildings. Providence, Alaska Medical Center, and UAA are zoned PLI. Signs in the PLI and RO district have the same sign standards, and these facilities do not have signs approaching the size that Alaska Regional Hospital is requesting. There's a second correction I need to make here. PLI is actually allowed where Providence Hospital and UAA, they are actually allowed larger signs. Instead of 80 square feet, they are allowed signs up to 120 square feet. And even though these two institutions are allowed larger signs, they have not installed these larger signs. The applicant is not deprived of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same or similar districts. Condition number 3, this sign is partially met. The petitioner's narrative notes that the hospital intends to change the main building entrance to the lower level western entry to separate the public drop-off area from the emergency entrance. Currently, both activities are concentrated in the emergency entrance, causing congestion. The division agrees that this arrangement is desirable. However, the petitioner is choosing to replace their existing signs, and there does not appear to be any special conditions or circumstances to justify the variance request for signs that are nearly double the size allowed in the RO district. Convincing rationale has not been provided to account for the large signs requested. Additionally, no justification for the size of the changeable copy has been provided relative to similar institutions in the PLI or RO districts. Now we're standard number 4. The standard is not met. The size of the signs along DeBar Road would impair the character and value of the surrounding residential properties. These signs will have changeable copy for a large percentage of the display area. This will have an effect on the character and integrity of the neighboring residential properties. Other than Merrill Field, the bank, and the fire station, which is closing in approximately 2 years and moving, the surrounding areas are zoned residential. And I do want to point out there is a gas station up near on the corner of Airport Heights Drive and DeBar. It's zone B1A and has quite a small sign. I've got pictures of it if any of the commissioners care to see it. There is also a church across the street. They also have a small sign, and I have pictures of that if commissioners wish to see it. There is the Alaska Blood Bank is across Airport Heights on the southwest corner of DeBar Road and Airport Heights Road. It's under construction right now. They are zoned RO-SL, so they won't be allowed to put signs any bigger than 80 square feet and a height of 15 feet unless they come in for a variance. So that's the neighborhood. The gas station is B1A. That's a local and neighborhood business district. So there are no really commercial uses. I mean, the gas station is commercial use, but it's not on a property that is zoned commercially. Standard number 5. This standard is not met. The other major hospital in Anchorage, Providence Alaska Medical Center, does not have signs that come close in size to the size requested by Alaska Regional Hospital. The 2 Sign A signs will add a degree of visual clutter to the roadway and the neighborhood given the size of the signs, their location, and the electronic changeable copy display lights for them signs, and the change in display will add more driver distraction and confusion that may be contributing factors in traffic congestion and accidents. Smaller signs would maintain a safe and orderly pedestrian and vehicular environment while still affording the hospital a reasonable opportunity to use signs as an effective means of communication. That's all I have for this variance section. I'll go on now to the other section, which are the instructional signs. That are all the signs around in the parking lot area, interior to the site. There's a definition of instructional signs. There is also a section on the bottom of page 4 that describes the 4 criteria that signs have to meet to comply with instructional signs to be permitted. The petitioner is proposing 3 types of instructional signs. The B signs, which are included in your packet for informational purposes only. These signs meet the sign code, so they don't need a variance. What do need variances are the sign C signs and sign D signs. The requested size of the primary instructional sign, sign C signs, is 27 square feet in area. The requested size of the B signs, which are the pedestrian signs, or sign D, are 15.3 square feet in area. Many of the instructional signs display directions to numbered buildings. These were determined to be largely redundant, given that the buildings are clearly signed with large letters, A, B, C, D, etc., on the building facades. The emergency building entrance is also signed with a large red emergency sign as part of a new canopy design that's just recently been completed. I think there are elevations of it in your packet. The signs located along the interior vehicular circulation drives exceed the allowed area. The difference in topography does not justify the height of the signs. For instructional signs, there is not a maximum height, but there is a maximum area of 6 square feet. Instructional signs are required to be the minimum needed to serve the intended instructional purpose. And those signs are located on lp.I/m on that sheet. Several of the requested signs are either duplicative or display information that identifies the locations of buildings. Each building displays large letters. The signs are located on building corners to minimize visibility to customers. I'm referring to the large building signs. Let's see. There's several signs that identify the employee parking areas, and I go on to say employees are typically aware of the designated employee parking areas. Convincing justification has not been provided to account for the signs requested. And the hospital receiving sign, they have decided to eliminate that sign. And that's all I have for this section of it. The division recommendations are on pages 7 and 8. And now I just want to go over a little bit on the letter that was sent to you and that information that I sent to you late afternoon. I hope you all had a chance to take a look at that. After, as I said in my email, we met with the petitioner's representatives last week, and we went over the staff report, so they were able to see what we were recommending, and we had a discussion there. And then they went to speak to the people at the hospital to get some kind of a discussion and concurrence on what they wanted to do based on the staff report. And so they then produced this document, which I sent to you all yesterday. And yes, they have agreed to eliminate some of the signs, which is great. We're moving in a positive direction. Let's see. If the commissioners have any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer any of the questions pertaining to this letter or the staff report.
Do we have any staff questions? Ed?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Ferguson, a couple of questions on process. One is the requirement for the 6 standards I see in the application, but I can't find it in the code. Am I missing something here?
You're talking about for the
Type A?
The type A, yes. Oh, no, they're not listed in the code. They're only on the application.
Okay. And the next one is, in the past, has the commission used the standard, like the petitioner included in the packet, this, let me flip to the page here. The United States Sign Council standard has, on past variances,
No,
the commission had any standard that we've gone by that have some consistency throughout?
No, in answer to your question, no. There has, in the past, we have never looked at, standards such as what was in your packet.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Jim? Doyle, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Ferguson, your staff packet writes a pretty strong denial, that the conditions are clearly not met. And then you, I guess, gave us some conditions if we wanted to approve it. And I guess the conditions that I'm struggling with this altogether, but the conditions I'm struggling with is for us to determine the sign sizes. And I'm at a loss as to how to even do that. Take a shot in the dark, ask them to come back, and I'm assuming that This is because you asked the petitioner to reduce his sign size and they did not want to? Is that correct? How did this condition come about?
Through the chair, Mr. Salho, you're referring to the meeting we had last week?
Well, condition number 7.
Okay.
The size of the remaining Type C signs shall be determined by the Urban Design Commission.
Yes. So your question is, no, we didn't get into, I mean, we gave, they had the staff report. We didn't get into what to do because we knew that ultimately it was going to be up to the commission to determine the size. And yes, Eric and I, my manager and I, we did talk about how to approach this, and we thought, I mean, yes, we could come up with a sign size, but whether or not that would be the sign size that would be, you know, determined by the Urban Design Commission at the end of the evening, we know that we feel the signs are too big. What the appropriate size is, we don't know. That's something I thought that would come out in the discussion tonight between us and the hospital and their representatives. We obviously acknowledge that they do need those signs size A, the big ones. The question is, how big do they need to be? They do need signs there, and how big overall the size needs to be and how big the changeable copy size it needs to be. I did notice in the letter that was sent yesterday, that you all received yesterday, they say they're reducing the sign size, but actually it's grown. It's taller than it was originally and wider than it was originally. What has gotten smaller is the actual sign area, and it's kind of confusing, and I'll explain how sign area is determined. And I went and talked to our sign permitting people who know more about this than I do because they deal with signs every day and issue the sign permits. So I asked them how they determine the sign area, and that is, if you all turn to your packets, we'll just look at this now on the sheet that shows the sign size on there. I think it's page 01 or 01. If you're all there. Okay, they look at the signs. The sign area is determined by just the area of the sign that contains the text. So, for instance, on looking at the sign type A, they look at the Alaska Regional Hospital portion of it, and they count up all the way to the top of the sign, that curvy bit. And it even includes that 3-inch space that's between the changeable copy and the part that says Alaska Regional Hospital. So the part below the text is not included in the sign area calculation. So, and then that same thing holds true for sign type B, C, and D, that we're not counting in the sign area that portion that's below where the text starts. So those darker areas on the sign is the only part that's counted in the sign area. Well, from there on up to the top of the sign, the curvy bit at the top. So from that part up is counted. So in going back to the letter, let's see. Oh, and it's on the first page, number 2. We've reduced the sign area to 120 square feet, yet if you compare the size of the sign here that they've shown on the sign areas that begin on again, it's 01. And what they submitted, and compare the size, the height and width are bigger than what they were. Well, it's 14 feet, 8 inches wide, and what they're proposing now is 14 feet, 2 inches high, and earlier, what the size height in your packet is 13 feet, 4 inches. So it's taller than it had been. Same width, just taller.
I'm confused about the sign area too. There's inconsistencies in the submittal and the calculations in the letter, but I'll save that for the applicant. And, so thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Joe Miller.
Thank you. Let me reorganize here for a second. I had a question on one of the I had a special question on one of the conditions. On condition 1, in the staff report, you had said that there are no special topographic circumstances that would result in material impairment of sign visibility. And I'm wondering, and the applicant has their first paragraph states the opposite, and I'm wondering if there is any specific design criteria that states what topographic circumstances might be?
To the chair, Mr. Miller, no, there are no specific standards. It's just that if you're driving along the road, what we look at, and there was an instance where a church in the past, it was just an administrative review, it didn't come to the commission, but it was a church located up in the hillside, which is, as you know, hilly area of town, and the church, in relation to the road, this is the road, and the church was downhill, down in a depression, a low area, and they argued that they had a topographic situation there that affected the ability for people driving on the road to see their signs. So I went out to look at it and agreed it was in a very low area, and it was difficult if they could only do the height that was allowed in their zoning district. It would make for a very short sign and hard to see given that big difference in topography. But so the commission, I would say, judge it by if you're driving on the road and looking at the signs, are they in a depression, or is there any topographic situation that makes their signs hard to read, hard to see?
Okay, thank you. And I guess the second question, and it's sort of a follow-up to Commissioner Sawhills, is if the UDC, if we come up with a square footage of area that we think is acceptable, and the applicant does not, how does that survive the appeals process?
Well, they can appeal it. The decision, it's up to the commission to make a decision. The petitioner is asking for a variance, which means, they can't meet the standards for their zoning district or don't want to meet the standards for the zoning district. So they're asking the commission, they're having to, convince the commission that they have these 5 standards, and it's up to them to make the case whether or not, to your satisfaction, they have made the case that they need a variance based on those 5 standards. So it's up to the commission ultimately to decide, in this situation, do they meet those 5 standards? And that's what you make your decision based on.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Joel Condon.
Yes, Madam Chair. I'm wondering about the size of the existing sign, especially the one at the corner of Airport Heights and DeBar. According to my estimate, if we include the plinth and the actual signage, we have 216 square feet, approximately 8 feet wide by, I estimated 27 feet high. I'm assuming this is also larger than what is allowable by code. Yes?
Yes. On page 2 of the packet, it says what they're allowed in their RO zoning district, the maximum height they're allowed is 15 feet, and they're allowed a maximum area of 80 square feet. And in terms of square footage, they're asking for 120 square feet.
Okay. So at some point, the existing sign achieved a variance?
I don't know. Apparently, we cannot find any permits for the existing signs that they have there. I think I'm correct in that. That's right? Yeah. We couldn't find any permits for those signs that they have now. So it could be, they got the signs, I don't know, in the 70s, the 80s, we don't know.
Huh.
Whenever the hospital went in, and I don't know how long the hospital's been there. And I don't know if the sign has been changed out, swapped out since, maybe they had an earlier sign and they put those in later. I don't know. I don't have any background on when those signs went in that are there now.
Okay, thank you. It makes it even more difficult because we're looking at existing conditions and then we're trying to pin a number on, what the size should be going forward when we have an existing condition that doesn't meet code either.
Yeah, I can't argue with you.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Leonetti?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a little bit of information for the commission on Mr. Sawhill's question. If we all brought our code books, which I presume we all did, the defined area for the area that's calculated for the sign is in a figure in 470305B. And also, that is a bit enlightening and might answer a couple of questions that commissioners have. And also, if you look at 2147050B2, there's a schedule there that has the size and the height and everything, and it's helpful for the freestanding signs. One other question. The 5 standards that you went through on your staff packet is only for type A.
Correct.
And the other 2 types of signs, the standard is left up to the commission. There's no definitive code reference or anything that they have to abide by.
For instructional signs, yes, you're correct.
Okay, thank you.
I just have a really fast question for you, Sharon. The code is defining the base of the signs as area that do not count, but it's not defining the top or the size or the in-between as an area that do not count. Am I correct?
No. We do count the size, the space in between the 2 signs, and we do count the portion at the top.
Okay. Okay. Which they might not be necessary, but that's just an observation.
Yeah.
Do we have any more questions for the staff? So we don't have more questions, and now it's the petitioner here. Can you come forward, please, and state your name and spell it for the record?
Hi, I am Michelle Ritter with Dow. Michelle with 2 L's and then R-I-T-T-E-R. Sorry, I'm going to put this in that. With me this evening is Matt Brown with Interface. He's the wayfinding design and sign designer. Also, Dieter Santo, who is with Alaska Regional. He can answer specific questions. We mentioned a cardiac care certificate that we're trying to achieve as part of the overall sign plan. He can answer specific questions on that, as well as Paul Mitchell, who is the facilities manager at the hospital. Sorry, I think this is going to get logged in while I'm talking. I do want to make one clarification. Staff has indicated that we're asking for a variance from square footage, quantity, and height. Actually, the variance is just for square footage. We're not exceeding any height requirements, and we're not exceeding any quantity. As far as process in our application, the 5 standards that we were addressed or told to follow are actually the 5 standards that are in the application. It was my understanding that not only are we following those 5 standards for type A, but that was also being followed for the instructional signs. Instructional signs, you're allowed up to 6 square feet. However, there is no maximum quantity or separation. So the way we kind of approached this was getting variances to allow for certain sign types and then showing the locations of each of them so that you could, as a board, say, we approve this sign type with the elimination of X, Y, and Z. The change that staff is discussing as far as our kind of adjusting the green area actually came out of a meeting that I personally had with both Sharon and Sonnet Calhoun, who is the sign expert. She's from their end that she's referencing. We showed them that alternative, and they seemed, the feedback we got was that that was more desirable than kind of the green face that we were seeing. So I just want to clarify that. I'm going to log in real fast. So some of the just overall changes that you've seen is, we definitely heard at the last public hearing that the application was confusing. It was a lot of information to take in. So we tried to really kind of put everything on a single sheet, identify what we are calling decision points and also the visibility barriers, as well as showing photo images so that you could see kind of photo renderings of where we're proposing to put the signs and what the challenges are between those signs. And we also provided the visibility metrics that was requested. So here are the sign types. Oh, sorry. So overall sign changes from what you saw back in January. We went from 27 signs to 13. The sign type A, which was 435 square feet in that application, which is actually the size of the existing sign that is there today, we've now reduced that to 120 square feet. We've also reduced that down from 3 signs to 2 signs. Sign type C has gone from 34 square feet to 27 square feet. Also with the reduction of, we originally had 12 in the original program and now there'll be 8. And then sign type D and D.1 went from 21 square feet to 13. With the elimination of some of the D type and some of the subset D1, we've actually taken that type of sign down from 10 to 3 since the original application that you saw. And as well, we removed the hospital name from all of the internal signage. So this is what you saw in your original application. These are the sign types. This is what we're proposing today. This was the original layout, so we actually had to show it on 3 different slides. This is back from the January public hearing. Today, we've condensed that and we've eliminated quite a bit of signs. This is the new sign plan. So we're showing you the ones that aren't required to have a variance just so you can get the flavor of the whole entire plan, as well as we wanted to show you which ones we've deleted at the different locations. The Airport Heights Community Council did receive the new application and actually wrote a letter of response that they voted 18 for yes, 0 no, that they approved, that they preferred that this plan and felt that it was a really nice compromise. That's not verbatim what they said, but the gist of it. So staff has kind of indicated that, I just want to clarify one thing. Most hospital campuses are in the PLI zoning district. The PLI zoning district allows a freestanding sign up to 120 square feet. That's our justification for the 2 sign type A signs that we have. There is a topographical challenge. I mean, the site does have sloping issues. It has a lot of frontage. It's a large campus. Even looking at how the 435 square feet looks in the scale of the big campus, we're actually a little bit concerned that 120 square feet may be drowned out. However, we feel that that's an acceptable variance to request, as is this is not a typical RO property, which would be typically a lot smaller than this. And this is in line actually with what Providence has. I actually did a variance for Providence that was very similar to this, and this body actually approved signs that were quite a bit larger. I actually have the numbers. And then, so here's kind of the signs that were in their application. and that are typical. So one of those signs is 83 square feet, another is 43 square feet, and they also have another one that's 118 and a half square feet. Those are all, they had the same issue with, because we're limited on the tools that we have for campus signage, they also had to kind of do the same thing where we had to use the instructional signage and then get variances from that. So I'm not sure where the information is coming that University and Alaska Native Health and Providence aren't using this sign type. This is in line with what other campuses are using. We did, I feel that our application does address the standards that meet the standards to meet the variance request. And additionally, as Sharon, Ms. Ferguson has pointed out, we did review their conditions of approval and went point for point of which ones that we found were acceptable and which ones we just didn't because it would have it compromises the integrity of the wayfinding. I believe that was sent to you yesterday afternoon. And in that, the question's been asked is we understood why staff kind of put the onus on the Urban Design Commission to kind of be the end-all decider of what those signs, what the maximum sign area is going to be. But as we explain in our application, the justification for sign type A being 120 square foot is because it is in line with similar campuses, similar uses of its type. So we feel that that's a reasonable request. For sign type C and D, those signs were designed based on the formula for character height and how much words you should have in a message, and that drives the sign area. So we have asked for the minimum variance that will allow for the signs that are needed for an effective wayfinding system. I do want to point out that, as it's been noted, the signs on the campus today are much larger than what we're actually proposing to replace and exist with. And we could not, if this variance was not approved, we actually can't even replace the existing instructional signage on the campus. So the signs, when you were driving around campus and you saw those signs that were kind of directing you, we can't replace those. I mean, that we would need a variance for that, and essentially that's what we're asking for, is to replace those with a different type of signage. I believe that Matt may have some additional information to add.
We just have a minute and 30 seconds left.
Okay, I'll make it quick. Basically, when we were here in January, there were several items that came up that were questions that we felt needed to be addressed. So I wanted to take the opportunity to address them briefly. You received in your package information about sign type metrics. I wanted to add one more, which is an industry standard here. If you look at sign company websites and so on, this has become, and it's part of the product of the organization I referenced previously, copy height versus visibility. The rule of thumb, for the most part, is 3 inches for 30 feet distance, or 1 inch per 10 feet. So all of the signs here are more than 30 feet apart as far as the remaining signs that we are asking a variance for. One question that came up was statistics usage. These reflect the use of the campus for both emergency patients and for the outpatients, and that's for your reference. And then finally, one of the questions that came up was, can we do a better job, and I'm paraphrasing, but can we do a better job of identifying the buildings at the entrance? Because we originally had freestanding signs that had building letters on them, and the concern was that those were excessive. So we have eliminated those signs, and instead we are implementing vinyl on the entry points so that on a pedestrian level you can confirm that you're entering the right building.
Okay, I think we have run out of time.
And I'm all done.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Oh, no. Just 1 minute, please. Okay, let me ask if we have anyone else in the audience that would like to testify? No, we don't have anyone. Okay, so now we close the public hearing. Do we have any questions for the petitioner? Commissioner Joe Condon?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I noticed on the canopy that there, in large letters, it says emergency on, what is it, the southeast facade of that canopy. Are you going to use the same lettering on the southwest facade of that canopy, the emergency? Because I think it's very effective in terms of communication to have the large red emergency word displayed, but it's only visible from a certain vantage point along DeBar. And I think that, I'm just wondering, are you planning to use that same strategy on the southwest facade of the canopy?
It's not currently planned, but it's certainly worth considering.
Because I'm thinking that people traveling, east on DeBar, they would have direct visual access to the word emergency on the canopy that's available to people traveling in the westerly direction.
I think the only factor that we would want to evaluate and make certain that you're getting return on investment for would be whether there's foliage in the way that would prevent visibility from DeBar.
Okay. Thank you.
If I can just add to your question of if that was being considered, I just deferred to Alaska Regional, and that is currently not part of the canopy plan, but could be explored.
Thank you. Commissioner Elinetti?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Brown and Ms. Ritter, thanks for the updated plan, and thanks for sending it in yesterday. That's helpful to have responses prior to tonight. Yeah. That would have been completely overwhelming. I agree with your position and your concept on sign type A. I haven't quite figured out how we can get around the 5 conditions that appear to not be met. So that's probably going to be some dialogue with the commission here. But for the other signs, I'm at a loss because of one reason. The sign type A, I agree with because of the PLI. I agree that it's similar to the PLI zoning district, and it's the same use, it's just a different zoning district. The roadway information that you provided, I think, was adequate, and it makes sense. It's along a road, and there's a speed limit, there's a distance, all that stuff comes into play. The challenge with the institutional signs is that the posted speed limit on campus is 5 miles an hour. And I don't know if you guys have done the calculation for that, if you were to put it into the standard that you applied to sign type A. I have not. But perhaps that's a direction we could go to define an area that's the commission can embrace, if you have considered that.
Let me make sure I understand the question, if I could. What you're asking is whether the supporting documentation reflects the actual internal conditions for the campus, where the speed limit is far below what it is around the perimeter.
Correct.
This is a chart I included for consideration, and that's why we included it in this discussion. It is an industry standard chart for information. It's a product of the U.S. Sign Association, and it basically indicates the rule of thumb for copy on a sign. And this is not a speed-related evaluation. It is absent of any, basically if you're stationary, this is what is recommended as an industry standard.
Well, it has a speed limit on there, though. That's where I'm getting confused. At 20 miles an hour, at 25, or at 30, 40.
Right, well, and what I'm saying is on the directional signs where the copy is 3 to 4 inches high, it's in a category where the speed limit doesn't apply because it's small enough that, because the larger categories reflect visibility at speed.
So this is from what document? Interface design, that's you guys, right? This is just something that you guys produced?
It's something we produced off of the standards that the U.S. Sign Association has.
Okay. Great, thank you. And this was in last night's information or yesterday's information that you sent?
Correct.
Okay, great, thank you.
As was updated plan set that showed the new configuration of signs and what had been deleted and new sign types. Just to make sure you have everything.
Based on staff recommendations.
And so, could you just point to so you're saying the 3-inch height, there's a reading distance of 100 feet and an impact distance of 30 feet. And based on that, you can have a sign that's whatever the number is for this sign type D. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
And that
When we design a sign,
Uh-huh.
we start with the copy. We start with the messaging on the sign, and we did in this case. And so we take the worst case scenario or the highest number of potential messages and design the sign so that those messages are visible.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Joe Condon.
Yes, thank you. Do you feel it's absolutely necessary to have a digital illuminated display on the sign type A?
The intent and the primary reason for the digital display is to display emergency waiting time. That is the primary reason to include that. And so the necessity is driven by the ability to do that and give the public the option of making that decision prior to entering emergency.
So the faces that we see on on your graphic isn't representative of what will be displayed in that digital illuminated sign. It's only waiting time. It's some kind of text.
It would be primarily emergency waiting time.
Okay, and my second question is, do you think this is intrusive in a residential setting?
Do I think a digital display is intrusive in a residential setting? I think it can be provided in a way that is not intrusive, yes.
And I'd just like to point out that in the 2 locations that they're proposed to be located, they're actually, well, I'm not going to, there is a lot of residential in the area. The 2 locations, though, are across to more of the commercial. There's a large church and First National Bank across from one of the southern type A location at DeBar, and then the one at the corner is across from the gas station. So they're actually not placed directly across from the residential. They are more in the commercial pockets of the campus entries.
Okay.
To eliminate a lot of that conflict.
Okay. Thank you.
Do we have any more questions? Commissioner Joe Miller.
Yes, thank you. I'm looking at the standards and the standards for the variance and the responses that you've provided. And, well, at least in standard number 4, I have some, well, maybe not questions, just some concerns with the other standards, but particularly in standard number 4, and I think this is getting to Commissioner Condon's comments. And it says, I'll paraphrase, the objective of the sign ordinance is and not impair the integrity, character, utility, and value of neighboring properties or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare. And the response to that doesn't seem to really address the standard. So I think I'd just like to give you the opportunity to, I appreciate you mentioning the church and the bank, and I wasn't familiar with those. I was primarily thinking that this was a residential neighborhood
Yeah.
across the street. So if you could just speak to that a little bit.
And kind of as I stated so I think this standard definitely does more lend itself to applying to the type A sign that are going to be on the roadways. And as I stated, they are placed more in line with where the more non-residential uses are occurring. And the First National Bank sign, I'm not sure how tall it is. It's a pretty large, it's huge. It's probably like 20 or 30 feet. I feel like ours is in a scale that's far less intrusive than some of the neighboring scale signs, even the Chevron station that's at the corner of DeBar and Airport Heights. In regards to all the internal signs, those are internal to private property, and the general public won't be seeing those, so I don't believe that those will have any impact whatsoever on neighboring properties. But we'll just overall give the general public that are arriving there a better sense of where they're heading and security that they're heading in the right direction.
Right. I should have clarified. I was referring to sign type A specifically or only. And then I think I have the same comments in standard number 5, which not material add to visual clutter or visual blight. And I don't think the response really addressed that. And that's not a comment, that's just an observation. But
No, I understand. The spacing, they're far enough spaced together that I don't believe that they will give the appearance of any type of cluttering. I think they've been architecturally well designed so that they are professional looking and not junky or presenting any type of visual blight, in line with the surrounding businesses.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Jim Sahel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have lots of questions, you probably anticipated. I think in general, I think the sign design is good and it's consistent, and you're scaling it up and scaling it down for the different signs. So I get that. And I think that lends itself to some of the signs being bigger than they need to be by scaling them up and scaling them down. I think there's some information on some of these signs that aren't needed, that are obvious because you can see the buildings. I don't think you have to direct big people to buildings B and C when you can see building B and C. So those are some of my general questions or general comments. The two monument signs, signs A, if you did not have the digital display, would they meet the requirements of the zoning district?
So it's harder to answer. If you just took the digital display off and you just had the green panel, yes. However, they may opt to make that green panel larger to help make it a larger site. I think that if you took the digital display off and you just had the green panel that was left, that would be too small to honestly serve the purpose of letting a driver going down DeBar know that that's an entry point. So
I'm not a big fan of digital displays, and I'm not sure a digital display is appropriate at this location. I'm feeling kind of comfortable with 120 square feet, but I'm not feeling comfortable approving a variance that leads to a digital display. So if we made it a condition of approval that the A signs have no digital display and approved them for 120 square feet, what would your response be?
can I just defer with Alaska Regional to ask them?
Hi, can you please just state your name and spell it for the record?
Absolutely. My first name is Dieter, D-I-E-T-E-R. Last name is Santo. I'm the Director of Programmatic Development at the hospital and also in charge of all wayfinding. So in answer to your question about how we would feel about the missing of the digital piece, as the hospital looks at one of our corporate initiatives, which a lot of people might not think is as important, but we're driven by our corporation, is the advertising of our ER wait times, where in the lower 48, all of our 176 hospitals all have to have billboards. We, of course, don't want to bring billboards in, and that's not something that we see here in Alaska, so we really respect that. The second piece is, as we do community things such as an education on heart and chest pain or stroke and those initiatives, the one thing that that provides us to do is to be able to premiere that those things are being given at the hospital free to the community. So there wouldn't be like advertising like, hey, you can come and get your flu shot for free and that type of thing. The whole purpose was about us being able to promote the services we're providing to the community. We have shifted a focus very heavily on that and letting people know the things that we have to offer as far as their education and well-being. Does that help a little or some? Or?
It's helpful. You want it for advertising and for the emergency room.
Yes.
If we limited it to emergency room wait time only, what would your response be to that?
I would have to defer to my CEO. Sorry to make light of that, but that is actually a very difficult question. I would say if we get into the either or, and if we started with the no digital, that would be a no sell on our end. But if we then start limiting what goes up there, that I believe is a negotiator. Okay. I'll just say that.
All right, we'll move on. I got some other things I'd like to talk about. I went through your updated site plan and started crossing out all the signs that staff had recommended should go away, and then was looking at your responses to those. And, you know, one of the comments from staff is some of the information on the wayfinding signs is pointing out buildings that are visible. So it doesn't look to me like that information is needed. For example, I'm looking at your most western entrance off the bar. You come in, and then sign 12. One of the lines of text is directing people to buildings A, B, and C. And buildings A, B, and C are all visible from that location. There's a nice big A, B, and C on the buildings. So it seems like redundant information. And without that line of text, then it seems to me the signs can get smaller. And if you go up to sign 14, again, it's directing you to buildings A, B, and C, and it looks like those lines of text are redundant and not necessary, and so maybe that sign can get smaller. And so that's one of my questions, is I look at the C signs, and I wonder why they can't be the size of a D sign. Why can't these be smaller? They seem tall to me. They seem big. One of the things I am sensitive to is the size of the emergency lettering. You know, that has to be the right size. I'm deferring to your judgment that be the right size. I want to make sure people can find their way to the emergency entrance. So I'm a little reluctant to reduce the width of the C signs because they have all the emergencies on them, but they just seem tall. You know, I was wondering if they could be shorter, and then the green area below them could be smaller to meet the minimum size signs that are required to function as you would like them to. I looked at signs 7 and 8. One of the conditions is to delete one of those. That makes sense to me. I think once you're on that road and you're going, that you'll get to where you need to go. I'm not sure you need both those signs to encourage you to travel through. When I was driving the campus, I agree with Joel that an additional emergency sign on the canopy on the southwest side, as you're coming around the building on that side, you can't see that emergency sign until you're basically parallel with it. And I think that would provide a great benefit to people trying to find the emergency room coming around on that south side. I don't know, it wasn't clear to me on which sides the buildings will all be labeled up on the building. And I guess I would encourage more of the labeling of the buildings up on the sides, on some of the other sides, especially on the back side. As you're coming around the back side, you have some signs that are directing people to buildings that I think you could add letters on the buildings and make those easier to find from the back side. Sign number 17 is on top of a transformer, so I think you're going to move that one. And so those are some of my observations based on what my review of the case and the information. And the thing I'm really struggling with is the task that staff has given us is to define the size of these.
I understand.
And I feel like I'm pulling stuff out of the air, and I don't feel like that's a good thing. I'm really struggling with that. And then getting back to the size of your signs, I was confused as to how big these really were. And in the packet of information, you have a table in the back that has the existing sign area, previous proposal, and the revised proposal.
Right.
And the areas in the revised proposal are different from the areas that were in your narrative that you submitted yesterday. And so
They've been reduced.
I'm looking at the dimensions on the signs on sheet, where is it? 01. So I'm looking at the dimensions of the C signs, and I'm not getting the same square footage that's in your narrative that you want us to approve. So I was confused by that.
So, and I apologize, from when we initially submitted our application, we've been working with staff quite a bit, and I think that the response that we provided yesterday maybe was about the third or fourth iteration. So there may be some inconsistencies where we've been reducing the sign size. So can you please repeat which page you were referring to for the table so that I can, and is that from your?
It was in your narrative, and it says page 3 at the bottom.
Okay.
Michelle, would the final sizes be the ones that you presented in the screen?
Correct. And that are outlined specifically with the numbers outlined in yesterday's update. Those would be the final numbers that we were asking for.
Okay, and then sign E was 120, sign C went to 27 square feet, and sign D went to 13 square foot. I think that's the numbers, the final numbers.
That is correct.
So these plans that show the dimensions on the signs aren't the signs you're going to build?
Not from that set. So that's from our original application. No. So yesterday's update, when we responded to staff's comments, we actually updated both that sheet and the site plan, and the new sheet reflects the sign size.
Okay, the second sheet that you submitted with your memo doesn't have any dimensions on it.
Yeah, that sheet doesn't, that's showing the messaging for those.
But the other,
It shows them graphically, but it doesn't tell us how tall or how wide they are.
So maybe 01? Yeah. 01 is in the same package. I think it has dimensions.
correct. So this back page, Commissioner Sawhill, it's this page.
Okay, I found it.
So it should be dated 6.09.
So then these will be the dimensions of the signs you'll build,
Correct.
Correct.
or smaller if we dictate smaller,
Correct.
based on arbitrary numbers. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sawhill. Commissioner Ed Leonetti?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of points of discussion with Mr. Sawhill and for the petitioner, too. I think it's important that, you know, Mr. Sawhill, you mentioned a couple of times that identifying the medical buildings A, B, and C might not be necessary. That's really not in our purview. As much as we like to tell them what to call out, we have no jurisdiction to tell them what to put on their signs and what not to. What we do have jurisdiction on is the size, which is what you were leading to, is if you remove that, then it could be smaller. But in actuality, we could just say we want it smaller, make it work, and call out flying butterflies and whatever you want. And the other one is the digital sign. As we were going down that path, it's a by right, not use, but it's a by right standard that
Correct.
I don't think that we can limit them to not use that, since it's part of the code to be able to use it. What we can say is you can't have a sign bigger than 100 square feet, and they would have to reduce their size of the overall sign. And correct me if I'm wrong, Sharon, that
Through the chair, Mr. Leonetti, yes, when Jim was talking about that, I pressed my button to speak, and then withdrew, and I thought I'd wait until he finished. But you're correct. Jurisdictions cannot regulate the message that's on the sign, but they can regulate the size of the sign.
okay, thanks.
Yeah, what I think that Jim is trying to achieve here is, like, if you eliminate that sentence, you might be able to reduce the sign size. I mean, this is where he's getting to. But have you checked what's the size of the instructional signs in Providence?
Yes, that's what I.
What was the size? I don't
That's-
remember, sorry. I just
That's
want to know.
okay.
Is that in our packet?
They have, it's not in your package. It has to do with Providence's
Yeah.
approved variance, but some of their instructional signs, they have signs up to 118 square feet. So they have
Instructional, okay.
instructional signs, correct.
They are
And
in
for,
the same range. They are proportional to what we are proposing.
Yeah.
I mean,
And when
very
you're,
very similar.
when you're saying they're in the same range, are you referring to the square footage or the height?
Both.
So
both,
they're both 5'6" and 1'6" is 7'6" tall, and 4'6" wide, respectively, and then also 4'8".
They have a 20-foot wide directional sign.
And I,
But that was probably a monument sign, perhaps, on the road?
they have both. So their plan consists of both some freestanding monument signs as well as internal instructional signs. But this, so location B, this first one you're seeing, that one, that did not get approved, but these other signs.
How wide is that? I'm sorry, B, I can't read that text. Oh,
That's 9.6 feet.
By 14 wide.
okay.
This one that says location C, the one in the middle, is actually over 12 feet tall.
Madam Chair,
Institutional or monument?
Let me look that up.
Instructional.
Instructional,
That's
yeah.
an instructional sign?
Madam Chair, Madam Chair,
yes.
could I clarify? Michelle, did you say type A? No, the other,
I'll go back.
yeah, the type B there was not approved?
I believe that one was not approved, not with that
Okay.
information.
And
Yes.
C and A were?
Correct.
Sorry, once again, how big and how tall and wide was C?
It's 12 foot 7 by 14 feet wide.
Okay.
And it's an instructional sign, it's not a monument sign?
Correct.
And again, the A sign, the dimensions of it?
I believe it's 9 by 9.
9 by 9?
Sorry, it's not coming up much better in our.
Which I think they're larger to what they are proposing. I'm just trying to see here the big picture of what other hospitals have and what they are trying to achieve here with this signage.
And
I just think if we cut the height to cut square footage, we're going to run into the problem that are not going to be very visible because, you know, if there's a car in front of you, I'm just worried about trying to cut the height, so we should think a little on where we're going with this.
Yeah, no, the reason I'm asking these questions and making these statements is because I think that as much as we drive through these campuses, we also experience them as pedestrians, which you guys have also commented on. And I think in a more appropriate scale would be more pedestrian scale, meaning that they're not going to tower over a pedestrian as they walk by them.
Right.
Because in actuality, they're going to walk by them probably as much as they drive by them. And it's just a matter of when and where and how often. And that's what you guys are asking us to approve are those two things. So I did have one other question. Sharon had some pictures of some signs that were somewhere that I thought were relevant that she said that she could pass out if we asked. So I'm asking, please, if you could pass those, at least to me. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Ed. Commissioner Joe Miller?
Yeah, just one quick question. With the digital display on sign type A, how often will the display be changed?
It will conform to the requirements, which I believe is more often than every 30 seconds.
Okay, thank you.
I had another question, too, for Sharon. As crazy as this sounds, not crazy as it sounds, but I'm in complete agreement with Mr. Sahel that we're just picking from a standard if we tell you guys what size. Or we're not picking from a standard, we're just picking out of the air. And so one thing that we could do is defer to staff. Staff, what would you recommend? And either have you come back in an hour or 10 minutes or in a month. And have you guys already done that process? And has staff just deferred to us, which Sharon said? Or did you actually go down a path of, well, staff says 5 feet, you guys say, no, we want 8. And then it concluded with, okay, we'll just have the commission figure it out. Because that dialogue and that information is helpful for us actually evaluating something rather than saying, oh, it should be 4 foot 3 inches tall.
So it is my understanding, so Matt and I had a post-application meeting with Sharon, to which at that time she let us know that that's how she has handled the situation. It was my understanding that that came out of when, during the initial public hearing, when staff had just suggested that I think this type A sign be shortened by 2 feet and shrunken in less wide by 2 feet, the question was asked, what is that based on? And there was admittedly no rationale for that request. And I don't want to misspeak, so I'm going to kind of summarize, but it was kind of my understanding that staff admitting that they are not the sign design experts, that they also didn't have the rationale and didn't want to just throw a number at it. They felt subjectively that the sign was just too big, so felt that the final decision should be based on what the Urban Design Commission determines. And so when we responded to the conditions of approval, I mean, the sign variances, the signs that have been produced were based on a rationale, and that rationale is what is the type of message, what is the message that we have to get across, and how large does that lettering have to be, which then dictated the size of sign that was required. So I guess our response to that in providing you what we think the size should be is that this is the sign that we think we need through the vetting process and through applying industry standards that we need. That's, if Matt.
Sure, and let me, there was, if I could, Commissioner Sahel was commenting, and I realize this is off the table, but I still think it's worth addressing, commenting regarding messaging on the signs. A functional wayfinding system is consistent. And it's consistent because as you're going down the freeway, even though you've passed one sign that already said there's an off-ramp coming up, there's another sign that says there's an off-ramp coming up to relay that sense of reassurance that something is ahead. In addition, the directional signs function not only as directional information for the buildings, but for the building entrances, which are not clear when you look at a building and look at the top of the building. So that's the intent.
So for the instructional sign type C, which is 7 feet tall, and the message board or the actual sign is 5'6" by 4 foot, it is determined that the reading distance is 100 feet. And those are 3-inch texts, and the emergency text is larger. Do we have anything that,
Emergency text
I'm
is
looking
4
at this.
inches.
What's that?
The emergency text is 4 inches
4 inches.
on those.
So you can read that from further away, which is helpful because you want to see that as soon as you get to the campus or sooner.
Correct.
And the reading distances are shown on this other plan that you guys submitted originally, right?
Correct.
So in theory, you have provided all of the information that would determine the height of this text, which determines the height of the sign. And you conclude for a second time, even with the responses last night, that this is still the size of the sign that you want.
Correct.
And if there's nothing else that would, or if the commission decides that it's a smaller sign, would you guys not build them, or would you come back, or would you build them? Because
Would we reduce the signs is what you're asking?
well, certainly we're going to make a determination tonight or next month or whenever the determination gets made, sooner the better. Would you implement smaller signs, or would you just not have any signs and go with your existing signage?
This hospital needs a sign program, and we are attempting to get a sign program in time for the season, before the season ends. So we will be pursuing this in whatever form we need to, is my understanding. Now, of course, the hospital is providing the funding, but our objective is to provide an effective, functional signage system. So you're asking me, will I reduce the signs because we're told to? We'll do it. We're already at the edge where we have, in our opinion, the minimum amount of signs necessary to get around the campus and the minimum size of signs to be functional. So we'll figure it out when, the time comes. This is, I think, all I can offer because we have spent a lot of time on this program, and we've spent a lot of time with staff, and we've very diligently attempted to address all of the items that arose prior to this point. So it's something that, we need a sign program for a hospital, and they have destinations that matter. This isn't advertising. This is taking care of people, getting them to places where they get care, and it's kind of important.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's important to get them there, and especially the emergency department. One other point, as you drive around the campus, the visual clutter that I see there is 3 things. One is vegetation, which I enjoy because I'm a landscape architect.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Vegetation, which I enjoy because I'm a landscape architect and I like trees and green things.
Sure.
2 is the pedestrian scale lighting posts, which are enormous. They're probably 18-inch diameter posts with a little or a big rectangle at the top. And the 3rd is the actual existing signage.
Uh-huh.
So you're trying to accomplish with this signage package that the sign is the first thing you see rather than the last, as I experience it right now. Is that accurate?
From a functional standpoint, yes.
And if I can add, this isn't just stopping with the sign plan. They're doing an overall wayfinding program and rebranding, which includes interior signage, so getting within the inside, as well as the external signage with the banding around the buildings. So the letters that you see, say building A, B, and C has a color. Well, there'll be a matching band that goes around each building. And then once we know what's going to be approved from a sign standpoint, the hospital's been very busy changing the new emergency entrance and kind of getting all of that wrapped up. But the next step in line is working on a landscape plan and improving some of the pedestrian connections as well as pedestrian scale amenities that are on campus. So it is it doesn't just stop with the sign plan. It is part of a bigger picture that they really are working towards achieving a better brand and a better wayfinding for the entire campus. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And now we have Commissioner Joel Condon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you guys compete with Providence for medical service business?
I'm assuming correct.
We're not, I mean,
You're a for-profit institution, and I'm assuming you have a certain amount of,
I can't address that question.
okay, as...
I don't work for the hospital, so I can't really.
Well, okay, so what I'm getting, where I'm going with this question is the monument type A sign that you're requesting, Providence has a type A sign, a monument type of sign. What was the criteria that was used to approve Providence Hospital's type A monument sign?
Through the chair, Mr. Condon, you're referring to the signs that they had up earlier on the screen?
Yes, exactly.
Again, in terms of the size, we looked at each of those directional signs and determined that each of those individual signs were on the C and the map on the A. There was some question on the A sign. But on the B sign, we determined that given the nature of Providence Hospital, which is very, very spread out, it's all over, and on many different roads, different sort of campuses that you go from one to the other. And so we determined that given those signs directing you to various buildings were needed, and to be able to read them, they did have to be this size. But that's a little bit different. It's a different situation than at Alaska Regional Hospital.
Well, I'm just sort of getting back to my original question about, fair competition within an industry. If we say that Alaska Regional can have a sign of a certain size, Providence could come back and say, that's not fair, they get a bigger sign than us.
Right. It's just that the nature of the two medical campuses are just very different. Alaska Regional is very compact. If you look at the map, all the buildings are right next to each other. You don't have a building here and then another one way over here, which is kind of how Providence is laid out. It has its, the major part on Providence Drive, but then there are other sections of it on different roadways, on Piper Street and all over. So it's hard to compare the two because of the nature of their campuses are much different.
Okay.
I don't know if that helped you or...
No.
Okay.
But thanks anyway.
Do we have more questions?
Am I allowed to speak to that?
I
know there wasn't a question, but...
Yes, go ahead. We can question you. Can you speak, respond to Sharon's comment, please?
Yes, I just want to kind of reiterate that the signs that we were requesting for Alaska Regional are smaller than most of the signs that are on Providence's campus, and it is still a 25-acre site. There are over 7 buildings, so depending on where you are, you can be quite far from your next destination, and I would kind of venture to say, myself driving around that campus on several occasions, that almost the compactness of it creates another visual obstruction because it is all close together. You have less time to make a decision. So you actually do need more reassurance that you're heading in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have Commissioner Nicole Rem.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I guess I'm the bad guy. I know you're RO zoned, but I feel that you are a hospital, and I actually drive by it every day. And I didn't realize that existing sign at the Bank Street down on the bottom was 400 square feet. It doesn't look that large. So I'm actually okay with the 120 square feet. I am concerned a little bit about the digital display. I don't know if any of you go to Eagle River, but there's one on Eagle River Loop Road at a carpet store, and it lights up the entire skyline, and I hate it. So I'm hoping that it doesn't have that effect. Can you speak to that? Is it going to be, 'cause when I look at the image that you display as your example, it's a bright white background. And I just feel that that might actually provide light pollution. What do you think that the background will actually typically look like on any given moment? I mean, it's tough to say.
We can maintain, I mean, again, we're getting into areas where I don't, go ahead, Theodore, please.
First of all, I think that's a great question because it was one of the concerns when they came up with the first example with the people and the smiling faces and all that, and that's not what we're going to be promoting. I think it was asked earlier about frequency of the changing of the messages. With our initiative from corporate, you will primarily see more of the ER wait time, which will be a dark red background with just the white lettering. Those will not be 30-second spots. They will stay up for very long periods because it's one of the things we have to advertise to give people the option to change their mind. If I'm coming from this direction, oh my gosh, they have 29 minutes before they can even be seen, I then can drive to another property. In between there won't be, lack of a better word, like the ones where you see the stuff streaming and it won't be animated. So there'll be more still type images. So if we're announcing the fact that we're having a stroke event, it'll also be the colors and everything behind it that would be in any type of printed material.
Okay.
I don't know if that helps. Or...
It does. And obviously I'm not going to put a condition on there that says use only blues and blacks and whites, but, but no, no bright pinks and no screening. But it, anyway, that's fine. I just wanted to state that part of it. One thing I did want to ask is, in your application we received last night, I'm not positive on signs 7 and 8 justification of keeping both of those. I think you said you need them both because you can't see them when you're, so can you speak to that? Okay. And so but they're in different directions, is that right?
Right.
There's one westbound and one's eastbound?
Two parts to the answer. Number one, and I want to go back to one of the original reasons for this program, we are moving the main entrance down and around the site, and I can show where that changes based on the map. It's moving from what is currently labeled as emergency to, if you look up and to the left, what is now labeled as the main entrance. That is a change. It's a significant change. And one of the things that happens at healthcare facilities is people respond by force of habit. You remember the hospital from the last time you were there 5 years ago. So the reason we are insistent or arguing for those two signs is because of the conditions both going this way up to emergency and then around the corner and then going back around the other way to the main entrance. We feel like that is probably, combined with the fact that there's also a building in the way and there's a difference in grade, that it's significant enough to have the information at both points.
Okay.
Since that's also the point where the most significant traffic flow change is happening.
Okay. And then I only have one more wayfinding question. I know in your revised packet that we got, I think, where's my, oh, here we go. So you wanted to keep signs 2, 16, and 19 that provided information about employee parking. And specifically, your argument to keep sign 19, which is to the right as you enter from the east entrance. That one is fine, but if they turn, just so you know, if somebody was to turn left that was new to the campus, the nearest new employee parking sign is not until they get all the way around to past building B. So there's really no wait. So if I came in and I was on call and I came in on the east entrance and I hung a left, which I don't know why I would do that either way, I couldn't see an employee parking sign until I got all the way around the campus past building B. So that was a wayfinding issue for me for being a new employee, I guess, going the wrong way.
So I'm glad you brought this up, actually, because what's odd is it wasn't clarified. We actually have staff parking signs so that our guests and patients don't park there. On the campus, one of the main buildings that connects to the hospital, everybody calls it the VA. We no longer call it the VA because it's not the VA, and it's created a significant problem. but people know to come down that back way because they don't have to wind through the entire route. We've had patients who have parked in the employee parking lot, and then when they get ready to leave, they don't realize it was a staff parking lot, so all the directional inside the building sends them another way. So it wasn't a matter of because somebody mentioned it earlier, and you're exactly right. Employees are taught where they park, here's your permit, and away you go. But we don't have a gate system, we don't have anything like that, and we find that we end up with people that end up parking there, and then by the time the crews and staff come in, they can't find their car, and it just goes on from there. So I just want to make sure you understand the purpose of the sign more so than...
Oh, right. It's just that it says, employees are expected to park in designated areas. Healthcare staff is frequently supplied per diem or on call. Thus, unfamiliar staff will also be arriving irregularly. So I was just stating that if you were trying to get people that don't regularly come, but are employees, then they're not going to find it if they go left until they finally get to the parking lot. But it's actually sounds like it's a wayfinding deterrent for for patients. Okay. That's all I had.
Thank you. Commissioner, staff, we have a question from staff. Sharon?
Yes, I just wanted to, Commissioner Ream, to try and help you with your question that you had. If you look at it's page LP.1-M, it's the one with, no, it's the next one. MS.1/M.
From the new packet?
Yeah, it's from when they submitted, not the new packet, the thicker one. And it shows all the signs here on both sides. And your question about signs 7 and 8, and it shows the southeast side and the northwest side. So it shows both sides of the sign. And if you look at 7 and 8, they're exactly the same. It's the same information on both sides of the sign. So I think that helps answer your question. Do you see what I'm referring to?
I see that it's the same information, and it looks like it's pointing the same direction, but I thought for some reason that I was misinformed and it was pointing in opposite directions, but they're pointing to the same sign, the same buildings.
And they are not visible from each other, those two signs. You can't see one sign from the other.
And I think what Matt is trying to stress is that they feel it's important that when you see one sign, you need to be able to see the next sign. And we are saying that we don't see why that's important. So that's the issue around signs 7 and 8.
Actually, the point is that depending on your direction of travel, even though these signs have duplicative information and they seem nearby, depending on which way you travel, you will see one, but you would not see the other. So the point is to allow travelers traveling in one way or the other to see the sign. One won't do it.
Right.
Yeah.
I have just a fast observation. Sign 7, I think you have an option to look at the sign and decide to go that way or not. But sign 8, well, yeah, I guess you'll still have an option if you see sign 8 early to turn into the parking or go straight. I'm just trying to understand.
That's right at the edge.
Okay, I get so I think that's what they're trying to say. They need the two signs because then you can take a early decision and no go that way.
Right.
And then you have to go all the way around.
If I can interject here a little bit too, I am in agreement with the petitioner that the signs are necessary because of two things. One, when you're going eastbound, it's really hard to see around the building. You can't see the entrance to the emergency department. You can't see half of the parking lot. It's like, where am I going? And sign 8 tells you where you're going and what's supposedly over there. And the same thing happens when you're going, I perceive when I'm driving there, the same thing happening when you're going westbound. What's on the other side of this building? I have no idea. Oh, the entrance is over there. Wow, okay. So, in my opinion, I think both of them are necessary, even though they're close, and there's an elevation change of, I don't know how far, but it's the where you going type of a thing.
Thank you.
Can I add more now?
You can add more.
So moving on to the next task, which is to make a motion to approve this. Sharon, is this whole sign type A is one topic, and the institutional signs are another topic? So does one motion, or instructionals, thank you. Does one motion cover the whole thing, and then we just go through the conditions?
I think it would be best to separate them into two motions, one for the variance for sign type A, and then do another variance for the instructional, another motion for the instructional signs.
Okay.
I think, in my mind, that would make it simpler. Because you have to address all, for the variance on the sign type A signs, you have to address, you have to go through each of the 5 sign variances. You'll have to, state standard number 1 and maybe read it and say, what does it or not, does it meet that variance standard or not, and the reasons why you believe it does or does not. And then you move on to sign variance 2, read it, and then say again whether or not you think the signs meet it or do not, and the reasons why or why not.
And why is that, if I could ask?
Because variances are different than most everything else we do, but it has to be stated on the record why you believe it does or does not meet the variance standard.
And the variance standard is not actually called out in code, it's called out on the application.
Yes.
And not to digress, but why is it not called out in code? Why can't we reference a code standard?
We don't have one at this point. All we have is the application.
So then, is it the code?
That's another
That's a
question.
discussion for another time.
Yeah, for another time. I don't have a good answer.
The reason I'm asking that is because
I would like to point out, I think we can do this in one motion. We just have to watch our findings and be sure we address each of the standards for all the signs. I think we can do it in one motion and get this done. Or we could, if the commission is more comfortable, we could do the monument signs and the wayfinding separately. But we just need to watch our findings.
I agree with Jim. I think it's pretty clear where we are moving. I think we have different thoughts. I just want us to think not about...
Madam Chair, I would suggest that we're done with the petitioner and we're ready to make a motion.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. I'm just requesting that we don't look specifically at the sizes and details, and we look at the big picture of what they're trying to achieve. So now, can I get a motion to approve? Okay, I have a motion by James Sawhill. I need a second. I have a second by Ed Leonetti. Commissioner Jim Sawhill, could you speak to your motion?
Thank you, Madam.
Can you state your motion, sorry?
Thank you, Madam Chair. In case 2014-0187, petitioner is Alaska Regional Hospital. I move for approval from a sign variance from 2147050 to allow Regional Hospital to have a freestanding signs that are larger than the cumulative area allowed by code. I guess I don't believe that they are exceeding the height or the quantity number. So let me check and make sure I have the... Yeah, that's that motion subject to staff condition 1. Staff condition 2 modified to read, the size of the type A signs, signs 3 and 9, shall be 120 square feet. Staff condition 3 as stated. Staff condition 4 as stated. Staff condition 5 as stated. Condition number 6, eliminate signs 2 and 15. Condition 7, the size of the remaining Type C sign shall be 27 square feet. The size of the remaining Type D signs shall be 15.3 square feet. Condition number 9 as stated, and 10 as stated, and 11 as stated by staff.
Can you speak to your motion?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I intend to support the motion. I had several concerns coming into the meeting tonight, and based on the responses from the applicant and their experts, I feel much more comfortable with things. I'm still not a big fan of the digital sign, but I guess it's a by right use, and my personal opinion will be held at bay. I do have some concerns that it's not really appropriate to the RO zoning, but it is a by right use, and I guess based on statements from the other commissioners that they can do what they want with their 120 square feet. We'll just leave it at that. Going through the standards, the first standard is special conditions exist which are peculiar to the land involved and which are not applicable to other land in the same districts, deprive such property of the ability to display signs. I believe this standard is met. I think one of the special conditions is that even though this is an RO zone, this is a medical campus. It's a large medical campus, and I think that's a special circumstance in this case. Large campuses require additional signage. I think our sign ordinance does not do a good job for medical campuses or our university, and they're difficult for us. So I think that is a special condition that has been met. And I would also reference the applicant's submittal and their response to that application would adopt those findings as findings of fact for this case. Standard number 2 is strict interpretations of the provisions of the sign ordinance would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same district under the terms of the sign ordinance. I believe this standard has been met. Again, this is a campus setting. The zoning is probably not appropriate. Maybe another route would have been to rezone the property to PLI and not be bothering us so much. But I think this is a very similar to a PLI zone. I think the signage that is being proposed was shown tonight to be compatible with other similar uses in the area. It's similar to the Providence campus signage program, and I found that to be compelling testimony tonight. The next condition is special conditions and circumstances not result from the actions of the applicant, and such conditions and circumstances do not merely constitute a pecuniary hardship. I believe the signing on this campus is in need of updating. I think the layout of this campus is piecemealed and expanded over time, and I don't think any architect would design a site that looks like that. One of the things I think is important is the main entrance to the hospital is not visible from the street. So good signage to get you to the main entrance and to the emergency are important. And I think it's a community service to provide that additional wayfinding signage and provide positive guidance to those two important entrances. So I believe this standard has been met. And again, I would also adopt the applicant's narrative and findings as part of the record. Next standard is granting the variance would be in harmony with the objectives of the sign ordinance and not impair the integrity and character or the value of the neighborhood. I believe the reduced monument signs are the biggest impact to the neighborhood, and I would note that they have been reduced from the initial application, and I find that to be important, that they've gone with a minimum size sign needed to identify those main entrances. I guess as a side note, I'm still not a fan of the digital sign, but I do believe it's in character with the arterial corridor that it faces on, and I think that's an important thing to keep in mind. Granting the variance would not materially add to the visual clutter, and again, I think the sign is appropriate for the monument sign. And I think also here, the reduction in the wayfinding signs, the number was significant in the original application, and I don't believe that the signs as were proposed to be approved will add color or blight to the area and are appropriate. And those wayfinding signs are also internal to the site, not very visible from the exterior. One of the things I did struggle with on the instructional signs was, are the signs the appropriate size? Is this the minimum size sign for the intended use to provide wayfinding? And I found that the information provided on the size of the lettering was compelling, and I believe the size of the lettering is appropriate for the size of the signs, especially the emergency lettering on the top of the type C signs, and I think that kind of defines the width of the signage. I was struggling with the height a little bit. I'm thinking that maybe they were too tall, but as we listened to the testimony tonight and was using the visualizations that were provided with the photos, I think the height is appropriate to be seen from cars from a distance and wouldn't be blocked by vegetation. So I believe the signs of the instructional signs are appropriate and the smallest they should be for this location and this campus. And I believe that's all I have for my findings, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Jim. Would you like to speak to your...
Yes, I would. Thank you, Madam Chair. I will not belabor the points, but Mr. Sahil, I agree with what Mr. Sahil said, and I will offer amendments to the conditions, and I'll go one at a time. Condition number 3, change to eliminate sign location number 4. Condition number 4, eliminate sign number 12. Number 5, eliminate sign 17. Condition 6, eliminate sign location number 15. And I agree with all of the other ones. Thank you.
I guess we now need a motion to amend the initial motion.
Sorry, Madam Chair, let me say that again. I would like to make a motion to amend. We'll go one at a time. Condition number 3 to state eliminate sign location number 4, period. Yes. That was what was in the packet from the petitioner, as they would prefer to see 7 and 8 and determine more appropriate to eliminate location number 4. And I believe that locations 7 and 8 are adequate and are necessary for people moving through the site. We do not have a second yet.
We have a second, but Nicole Rem. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, Madam Chair, I am in support of the amendment as stated by Commissioner Leonetti. I also believe 7 and 8 should stay and 4 should go.
Thank you. Now we get to vote.
Sorry, just one thing. To go back, if we could look at the conditions again on page 7. Sign type number 2, sign type A, you said 120 square feet. What about the height and the width? And the same is going to be true of, the signs C and D, so that we're very clear. We're not just looking at square footage. We're looking at what they're proposing.
Well, they're in compliance with the current code with the sign that they submitted.
With B,
And I thought A was as well.
no, yeah, A, so on A, Jim said 120 square feet.
Yeah, it's my understanding the code allows them to go up to 15 feet high,
Yes.
and it's under 15 feet?
Yes, so do you want to just refer to a certain submittal and say, the submittal, the sign size shown on,
That would probably be a
so we
good
have a
idea.
motion-
That's my understanding is what we're going to get is what they showed us.
okay. We just need to be clear about that.
It's still
so-
tied to these sheets though, right, our approval?
Yes,
Okay, and so we're just defining the area, and they got to be in substantial conformance to the sheet they submitted?
well, it would be good if we were to clarify that on sheet so-and-so, 100, the height and the width and 100, the 120 square feet.
So maybe we complete the motion that's on the table now, which is condition number 3,
Okay,
Madam Chair. And then perhaps we can go back and amend condition number, I can propose an amendment to condition number 2. So if we could finish the voting,
Yep.
Madam Chair, on,
Okay, the condition is approved.
thank you, Madam Chair. Now, if I could make another,
Now we have a motion to eliminate, we need a motion to eliminate sign number 12.
right, Madam Chair, if we could go, I think the process that Ms. Ferguson is asking is if we could start at the top and work down. So I went to condition 3, and she asked about condition 2. So I can make a
Okay.
motion now to amend condition number 2 to state, which I have pushed my motion button. The motion is to change the condition to state the size of sign type A is in accordance with,
I do want to point out that there are 2 submittals, and the one that they originally submitted, the thicker packet, the height and the width of sign A are different and different from what they submitted yesterday. So I just want to be sure which one we're discussing.
well, the one that I'm referring to is page 01 with a date of 6/9/15.
6915, very clear. Okay,
And it's sign type A
sign type A.
on that sheet. So it's page 01, and it has actually 4 dates on it, and the most current date is 06.09.15.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
So the motion is on the table and has been seconded.
Okay, we have a motion by Ed and a second by Nicole.
Let's vote.
Let's just start voting. Okay, the motion is approved.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Oh, we got more coming.
Yep. Once it goes back to the motion
It's not
page.
Okay.
I'd like to make another motion to amend condition number 4 to state eliminate sign number 12, period. I'm sorry, 13. I'm sorry, 13. So I'll state it again, eliminate sign number 13.
Okay. We need a second. Okay, let's start voting. Motion is approved.
It says eliminate 12 or 13.
computer's froze right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so the next motion to amend would be to modify condition number 5 to state eliminate sign number 18.
I would
17.
point out, it says eliminate 17 or 18. And they agreed to eliminate 18, so I think we're okay on that one.
Oh, I thought you had said,
Yeah, we're okay on that one.
well, it's not
do that.
definitive if we say 17 or 18.
And then they have their choice. And they already agreed to eliminate 18, so they can make their choice
Okay.
later. Same.
Okay. We need a motion.
Actually, if I could clarify, what was stated on motion number 6, or condition number 6? I thought I heard Mr. Sahil say eliminate signs number 2 and number 15.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
And so I'd like to amend that. The state eliminate sign location number 15, period.
Okay, we need a second. We have a second by Nicole Ram. Let's start voting. Yeah.
I'm changing it to state eliminate sign location number 15, period.
Yeah,
So 2 would remain.
The motion is approved.
That's it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Now we go back to our original motion. And I'm just gonna go and state the whole thing again. Number 1, subject to conditions number 1. Number 2, according with page 010609 2015. And it should not exceed 120 square feet. Number 3, change to eliminate sign location number 4. Number 4, eliminate sign number 13. Number 5, as stated. And number 6, eliminate sign 15. And then we move to 7 will remain 27 square feet. 8 will remain 15.3 square feet. And 9, 10, and 11 as stated. We have a motion to approve, and we have a second by Nicole.
Madam Chair, if I could add one more thing, we should probably add the date to conditions 7 and 8 of the sheets that Ms. Ferguson was referring to earlier. So I will make a motion to amend.
Okay, we have a motion to amend 7 and 8 to include the same document. We have a second by Nicole Ram. Now we start voting. The motion is approved. And now we go back to the original motion.
No, you lumped them both in. Getting efficient.
And now we get to start voting. Well, we need a motion to approve.
Now we're on the main
It's already
one.
on
Oh,
the
we're
table.
in the, okay.
We're good. We just need to vote.
The motion is approved.
Zoom, zoom, zoom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Do we have any reports from the staff?
No reports.
Okay. Any reports from the community? No? Okay. Can we get a motion to adjourn? We have a motion to adjourn by Joe Miller and a second by Nicole Rem. Thank you, everyone.
Chair Sullivan, I just wanted to know, how much longer is this parking lot going to be blocked off?
For a very
Very, very long time?
long time.